Hi everyone, Lewis here. Today I'm going to be making a video covering the controversy on the War Z in the past 2 months. You might have seen my first impressions video on the War Z, and you probably noticed that a lot of the things I had to say about the game were mostly positive, and let's just say that my opinion on the game over the past 2 months has changed dramatically. Everything I say in this video is of course my opinion. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion, and along the way there will be some facts about the developers and the game you may not have known before now, and all I ask is that you actually hear everything I have to say about the game and, like I said, also the developers. So before we actually cover the War Z, I thought I'd have a small history lesson for those who don't know too much about the game and talk a bit about the origin of the game and how it was developed in such a short period of time. So the War Z is heavily based off a free-to-play shooter called War Inc. Battlezone, which was developed by online warmongers. You notice a lot of things found in War Inc. are also in War Z. Pretty much all the character models, the weapons, the textures, the buildings, the props and the sounds are all taken from the War Inc. and then used in the War Z. One thing to already be suspicious about is the actual developers of not only War Inc. but also the War Z. The War Z was developed by a company called Hammerpoint Interactive, and like I said just a second ago, War Inc. was developed by a company called Online Warmongers. This will be all fine and dandy, a different development team dealing with a different game. It's not exactly something which is unusual, but something which you should notice is that the War Inc. development was actually completely shut down just a month after the War Z was announced, which seems a bit suspicious. You'll actually notice that the community manager for War Inc. and the War Z is the same person, a man by the name of Patrick Cook-Bowman. What we can take from all of that is that Hammerpoint Interactive and Online Warmongers is probably in the end the same company under a different name. The reason for the name change is pretty obvious. It's to hide their past in the development of the War Inc. With a simple name change and adding some lies to official FAQ on the War Z website, all of a sudden it seems like a fresh company to anyone who doesn't look into the history of it. The FAQ claims that we've got some industry experts from games such as Call of Duty Black Ops, Black Ops 2, Star Trek Online, League of Legends, World of Tanks, Guitar Hero and Mech Warrior. A lot of those games listed are actually AAA titles, once again giving the illusion that although the company is a new startup, as we do admit they actually formed it in early 2011, most of the staff in the company are actually people who have been around in the game development business for a long time. Finally, one more thing to note before we do move on is that we do actually claim on the FAQ also that the War Z, the actual design and the idea have actually been in place for a couple of years, and they've only started actually developing the game in the past year 2012. The main thing I'm trying to get you guys to realise from all of this is that the transition from War Inc. into the War Z is minimal. The only thing they really need to add is zombies and also of course create the entire map, which is currently in the game, which is called Colorado. Considering they claim to have a full development team and also a bunch of industry experts working for them, you would assume that all of this work could probably be done within a month, if not less. So far, the obvious lies which we found is that Hammerpoint Interactive and Online Warmongers are entirely the same company, or if not entirely, they are at least partially the same company, in that some of the staff members from the company have transferred over to the new game, the War Z. The game has not been in development for years, as the company does claim. Like I said, it's about a month's hard work if they do have a full development team working on the game. The game popped up out of nowhere back in July, and the entire project seems money driven. It's obvious that the company seen the success of the DayZ mod back in July, which was a time when the game was really exploding, and thought would make a similar game well before DayZ standalone's release just to steal their audience. Now that all of that's out of the way, you can already see Hammerpoint Interactive are simply a bunch of liars, but now we're going to focus entirely on the War Z and figure out the promises which were made by the team back in July and see how it stands right now. Just recently, on the 18th of December, the Foundation release of the War Z was actually released. Just as a little side note, but this is actually also the name that Rocket, the main dev behind the DayZ mod and also DayZ standalone, decided to call his first release. The names DayZ and the War Z are already close enough, but the devs thought they'd take it a step further and even steal the initial release's name too. Which means a lot of confusion for people who don't really know too much about the War Z and DayZ, and it ends up with a lot of people actually thinking that the War Z is in fact DayZ standalone. The difference might be obvious to anyone who's watching the video, but trust me, I've seen a lot of people confusing the two. This is another sly way to get Hammerpoint Interactive some more sales on their shitty product, and also probably for some people actually end up with them not purchasing the DayZ standalone simply because we had a bad impression with the War Z. So the Foundation release of the War Z, which like I said was released just a few days ago, implies that the War Z is not only out of alpha stage but also a beta stage, and that it's now simply a finished up product which they are constantly working on and adding more features to. So the original plan for the game was to actually release fully finished on fall 2012, and you can actually still see this in the FAQ. I've got no idea, but it hasn't been updated, so it still does actually say that the game is going to be released in fall 2012. And here's just a lovely little list of all the features which were promised or at least implied for the fall 2012 release of the War Z. Everything I'm going to list right now are things which aren't actually in the game right now. So they said we're going to have an easy friend system to be able to play with friends easily, which isn't the case. The stronghold system for storing gear and customization was going to be in the game, but it was pushed back. They were going to have server renting, which was also pushed back. They were going to have 250 slot servers, which simply wouldn't work on the map right now, but it was still promised for the fall. They were promising optimization for lower end machines, which is complete bullshit. It runs really badly on bad computers. They had player set missions, which were bounties, and help requests, which are not working whatsoever. There's a menu for them, but they don't work, and it's been the same since the game was released back in October the 15th. I'll talk about that a bit more soon. They promised trap setting, they promised a skill system, which still isn't in, and finally they promised cars. Let's just say, for example, the company didn't hit the deadline because of some unforeseen circumstances or some bullshit. So let's see what the progress has been from the 15th of October, which was 2 months ago, all the way to now, the 20th of December. So the zombie spawns have been increased, which isn't exactly something hard to do, probably just changing a number. The double-barreled shotgun was added to the game, although it seems as if the actual weapon was already finished. We can actually see the weapon in a 5-month-old screenshot, so that's not really anything which has been added, just something they've kept back and then released at a later date. The clan system has been added, but that was already a feature in War Inc., so there's next to no work for that. The anti-cheat has been added to the game, but to be honest, it doesn't work from what I hear. There's been some character models added, and finally the rest is just bug fixes and optimization for the game. So that's over 2 months, and all we're able to do is increase the zombie count and fix some bugs. I realise, of course, that debugging does take a while, but considering the game has apparently been worked on for over a year, you'd think that most of the bugs would have been already sorted out. The day of alpha release, which was on October 15th, was full of bugs. Simply opening up the leaderboard by pressing tab would make the game crash, and the game would crash randomly every 5 minutes. It wasn't something which has been worked on for a year, as the company claimed. It seems like something which was made at the last moment in around about 4 months or so, if that. Like I said, they did claim to add an anti-cheat, but the actual working of anti-cheat seems to be a bit questionable, because from the release date of anti-cheat, the hackers seem to more or less double or triple or quadruple or something like that. There were so many hackers on every server, all you've seen was people complaining about them. A month ago, they did claim to ban a lot of the hackers, but I've seen many reports of legit players getting permabanned as well, which is obviously really stupid, so it's actually questionable that anti-cheat actually works. I've seen people no-clipping, aimbotting, and none of this has been fixed until recently, but there's still a lot of hackers left in the game. So the anti-cheat really isn't something which must have took too much time for the company because it doesn't actually work. The final thing which we added in the 2 months from the alpha release all the way to now, which is of course the foundation release, was the character models, which again don't take too much work whatsoever. So that seems like a lot of lying and fake updates over a period of 2 months. Apparently the team work non-stop on the game. That's a quote from the newest PC Gamer article with Sergi, and since we claim to have a full development team, it seems a bit weird that in over 2 months of development, the only thing which they've added to the game which wasn't there already is that they've increased the number of zombies which spawn, which isn't exactly significant, like I've said before. What I'm confused by as well is that all the updates seem to be completely focused on the programming side of the actual game. For example, the debugging, the clan system, the increasing of the zombie spawns, that's all programming. There doesn't even seem to be an art team that works on the game. If it was, we'd have something to show for what we've done. The double-barrel shotgun, like I said, was already in the game, a few months ago, so that's not something which the art team has made. So as far as I can tell, the programming team is also the art team for the company Hammerpoint Interactive, which is always a good thing for game development, as you may well know. That would also explain why the texture is so ugly and why the animations are so shit in the game. It all makes sense now. So we've established that there's been next to no updates from the alpha to the actual release of the game, although we do have plans to add some more features over the next few months. This list doesn't even cover all the promised features which I talked about earlier, so I'm not even sure if they're going to be added into the game or for just something which are promised and never delivered. And some of these features which we're planning on adding to the game are simply a matter of porting them from War Inc. For example, the leaderboard system, which we have plans for implementing into the War Z, is already a feature in War Inc., so again, not too much work to be done there. No doubt these targets won't be hit, and even if they are, that leaves so many promised features to finish. At this rate, don't expect another map for the War Z until late 2013. It was implied that all the features which I talked about earlier were going to be added to the final game, which was planned to release in 2012. So why none of those features are in the game and done literally no real development for the game, I do not know. Another thing which a company more or less completely lied about was the actual pricing of their game. You can see a screenshot from a few months ago that the original prices were $20, $30 and $50, and above that you can see the regular price for those packages. And then you look at the new prices, which are actually even cheaper than the old prices. The only difference is with the old ones you get Stronghold hosting, but that's not even out yet. It just doesn't make sense. Obviously for the older packages you had a little forum avatar as well, but no one gives a fuck about that, so that doesn't really add any value to a package. So how the package is actually reduced in price while still having all the things but the forum avatar, I don't understand that whatsoever. And I've got no idea why it is regular price there on the first screenshot either, since it never actually went to a regular price as far as I know. The original buy page was from before the game was of course released, and these would confirm your access into either the alpha or the beta. Back then there was more or less no video footage out for the game, so many people bought it saying that it was a cheap price and saying that there was lots of cool screenshots on the Facebook page and also on the website at that time. And I will talk about the screenshots a bit later, because all of the screenshots which were featured on the Facebook page and the actual game's website were all completely bullshit and weren't actually from the game. What I find weird about the original buy page as well is that the alpha apparently only lasts 16 days. It lasted from October 15th to October 31st, and then after that it's then the beta stage. But to be honest, even right now the game is still in alpha stage. There's still bugs, everything is still broken in the game, it still doesn't have all the features which were promised. So how it's not in beta or alpha, I do not know. How they considered it, you know, a finished product. That's what we consider it right now. It's a finished product, but we're just adding more stuff onto the game. The 16-day gap between alpha and beta once again implies that the company knows what they're doing and that they're very far into the alpha stage, and it's simply a case of polishing the game. That's not the case though, because the game still has many game-breaking bugs. It still crashes randomly, it disconnects you from servers randomly, loot can get stuck in walls, and I'm sure there's lots of game-breaking bugs which people don't even know about. Keep in mind these problems which I'm talking about are from right now in December, not back 2 months ago in October when things were even worse. On top of that, the hackers are still rampant on servers despite all the anti-cheat updates which probably don't even exist. Okay, so now not only do we know that Hammerpoint Interactive are lying pieces of shit, but we also know the game is bug-ridden despite it being now in a release state. We know that over a period of 2 months there's been next to no changes in the actual gameplay, and finally we know that all the features which were originally promised for the launch in fall 2012 aren't actually in the game. So now we can have a look at some of the screenshots which released for the WarZ over 5 months ago on their Facebook page and their official website, and see how it compares to a final game. So all of these screenshots are ordered chronologically from July the 19th all the way up to August 11th, and I'm going to show you guys all these screenshots and tell you why exactly each screenshot is bullshit and not representative of the final product of the WarZ whatsoever. Keep in mind these screenshots are 5 months old, and although they do look really cool and really promising, you'll notice that all the stuff found inside the screenshots is not inside the actual game. So this is the first ever screenshot released for the WarZ. You can see it does look really nice. There's a lovely depth of field effect on the city in the background, which isn't actually a feature in game. This place as a whole isn't actually a place in the game. It doesn't actually look anything like the game, and in general it's just a complete lie of a screenshot since it isn't anything like the final product. This screenshot also looks really nice, but again, it's something which you can't find in the actual game. You might notice a common theme. You can't actually find this place in game either. This place doesn't exist either. Keep in mind these screenshots are months old. This place may exist, but the video effects used in the screenshot are nothing like the actual final game, as you can see from the moon in the top left. This screenshot is probably the biggest bullshit one of them all. It's a really nice city environment, and it isn't in the game whatsoever. There's no NPCs in the game, so I don't know what this screenshot's trying to show, and there's no helicopters in the game either, so what the fuck are those helicopters doing in the background? I have no idea. I'm not sure if this animation even exists, and if it does, it is actually in the War Inc., because I do know there's an item exactly the same looking in War Inc., and to be honest, again, this screenshot does look nice, but it doesn't look anything like the actual game. This place isn't in the game either. This screenshot's the same, it's not in the final game. The character on the left is in a pose which you can't even do in the game, and again, the city as a whole does not exist in the final game. Before anyone complains, yes, I do realise the devs have plans on making more than one map, but if we've got something amazing such as this to show us, then show the fans it, and they'll be happy. But unfortunately they don't, because I don't know what the fuck's happened here, but this is some kind of wizardry. It doesn't actually exist, so of course Hammerpoint Interactive can't show people this. This screenshot from August 11th shows another bunch of bullshit poses which you can't do in game, and some skins which aren't in the game, and also the loot in front of the character. You can't actually find loot placed like that in the final game, although once again it does look rather cool. This is the reason many people were hyped for the game, because it looked good. But the thing is, the final product is nothing like these screenshots which were released on the Facebook page. I'm really confused where these screenshots came from. They do look kind of similar to the final game, so where did the city go? Where did all the props go? Where did all these animations go? Where did all the skins go? I really don't know what the fuck happened, but simply said, all of this stuff doesn't exist in the game. Unless Hammerpoint Interactive are like waiting a bit to release all of this amazing shit, which probably isn't the case, they're kind of in a bit of a spot of trouble because all of this is false advertising really. It's nothing like the final game, so I'm confused as to why these screenshots were the ones released. I looked through the entire Facebook page and not a single image I could say confidently that that is definitely something which you can do in the final game, because all the screenshots released were in fact bullshit. The entire game's premise from the start of the project was in fact a lie. Okay, so everything about the War Z is bullshit, the development company is bullshit, the game right now is bullshit, they haven't met any targets, which is bullshit, they've just lied about everything, and on top of all of that, even the original screenshots for the game is nothing like the final game, which is complete bullshit. To be honest, there should be at least a few screenshots which are something like the game. Yeah, it's okay to show off screenshots which aren't entirely like the game, but just showing every single screenshot which aren't in the final game, it just doesn't make any sense to me and is completely lying to the customer. So there's been a lot of claims that the Steam page for War Z, which was actually only released on Steam just a few days ago when the Foundation release came out, was also a lot of false advertising. So I thought we'd check out that, the screenshots and all the information contained on it. So let's go look at the Steam page too. So first off, let's check the screenshots on the Steam page and see if any of these are actually directly taken from footage of the War Z. Your character can't do that in game, and that place doesn't exist, so it's bullshit. This place doesn't exist, zombies don't do that, characters don't do that. You can't get how much zombie aggro in the game, the item the player has on the left doesn't exist, the city probably doesn't exist, and the player model on the right doesn't exist. And also the animations for the characters and zombies do not exist. Zombies don't actually do that in the game, they'd rather walk around in circles and look like complete idiots rather than going, grr, I'm a zombie. So this again is a bullshit screenshot, and that place probably doesn't exist. Zombies can't do that in the actual game, and you never see that many zombies on screen at once. This place doesn't even exist. Zombies can't do this in the game. This is the most accurate screenshot of a game you'll ever see, but of course in-game zombies don't actually move their arms. They're constantly at the side, so again this is not something you can actually find in the game. Zombies can't actually do this in game. Zombies can't do this in game, and this place probably doesn't exist. This is the double-barreled shotgun screenshot which I showed you guys earlier. This place does not exist, and the zombies animations do not exist either. These people don't exist, and there's no active fires in the game as seen in the background. Why the fuck is the sky red and zombies do not do this in game? Zombies don't do this in game, and this place does not exist. And finally, the sky in this screenshot is bullshit, zombies can't do that in game, and humans cannot do that in game. So overall, considering this is the official Steam page for the game, these screenshots are kind of deceiving to someone who doesn't look further than the Steam page. They'll think that all this is gameplay, and it looks really cool once again with all the zombies going like, oh, I'm a zombie, and grabbing people and shit like that, but it's not in game, so it's false advertising, it's simple as that. And also some of the locations found in the screenshots don't exist as well, so another pile of bullshit from the devs. Let's just check the description of the game quickly as well, just so we can see if any of that is complete bullshit. This is complete bullshit. The actual map, Colorado, is 72 square kilometers, nowhere near 100 square kilometers, because you can see in the top left, most of the map is actually cut off and unplayable, which is just kind of lying. I mean, saying it's 100 square kilometers when it's actually nowhere near that because there's so much unplayable zones because of the mountains around the map is just complete bullshit. This statement is also a lie. You can't actually sell items in the store. There's no auction house or anything like that currently in the game, and as far as I know, there's no plans to add one either, so that's definitely an interesting statement from the devs. And for those who don't know, the Steam page was actually originally much worse than this, and it lied in even more fronts and made it seem as if the game wasn't in alpha when it clearly is, and we had to actually change it because so many people were angry that they were essentially just lying to the customer who was buying the game. This is a screenshot of the original page, and you can see the bottom part where it talks about features which are going to be added just completely isn't there. Like I said, it's talking as if the game is final, you know, it's cheap, it's £10 or $15, in fact even cheaper than that, it was $13, so it's just really attractive to anyone who's interested in DayZ Standalone, except it's out right now, the screenshots make it look awesome, the description makes it sound awesome, and it doesn't talk as if the game is still a work in progress, it talks as if it's a final product, which is why they changed the Steam page so it wasn't as deceiving as it was before. There's so many things I'm not talking about simply because if I did, then the video would be way too long. There's so much weird stuff with War Z and Hammerpoint. Just a few examples, although I'm sure there is many more. There was a case of admins cheating in games, and there's also proof of the admins calling all bandits faggots, so that's some really good PR from Hammerpoint Interactive. Well done, sir. I think I'm more or less done on expressing my opinion on how I feel about the Warzy and Hammerpoint Interactive, but I thought I'd show you guys one more thing which really just blew my mind. This is something which was added just a few days ago in the Foundation release. So originally when your softcore character died, you'd have to wait 1 hour and then you'd be able to respawn your character. In this patch, they changed it from 1 hour to 4 hours, and if you actually want to respawn instantly, there's the option to pay money. Yeah, you could make the argument that you could simply delete your character and make a new one, but for most people they would like to keep one main character which has all their stats and all that kind of stuff and has their favourite appearance or something like that. So you have to pay 50 GC just to respawn, which I've worked out, and it's actually $0.7, which isn't too expensive, but let's be honest here, paying to respawn a character, it's kind of bullshit. They also said in the FAQ that the game wasn't going to be paid to win, yet in the store you can purchase ridiculous things such as the best attachments in the game, you can buy all of the placement barricades which are in the game, you can buy the best healing items in the game, all for real money. Of course you can't just buy weapons, which is a good thing, otherwise the game would be complete shit, but still, the microtransactions on the game are ridiculous. Why does the game need microtransactions when you've already purchased it? It makes some sense in real MMOs, for example Guild Wars 2 you had to buy and there was also microtransactions in the game, but that was handled quite well. It wasn't ridiculous things such as buying items when losing them to other players. It's just, the microtransaction decision just didn't make any sense. I don't understand why it's in the game. It does work quite well in non-subscription MMOs, like I said just a second ago, Guild Wars 2 is a good example, in that you could swap between your real currency and also the in-game currency which you get from doing quests, that kind of stuff. You know, that's a real MMO where it does work, but this is not an MMO. Warzy is not an MMO as much as you want to believe it. Okay, I'm completely done. Basically, the entire game is a lie. The marketing for the game was a lie. The Steam page is still a lie. And to be honest, anyone who doesn't look into it is going to buy the game thinking it's going to be enjoyable. The core game is in fact enjoyable, but the thing is, the game has no future. The development team is shit. They do not listen to the customers. And the development of the game is really slow. Like I said, don't expect a map if the game is even in development next year until really late in 2013. The game had a lot of promise and potential, but in the end the devs are just in it for the money. I did have some hope in the game, but when the devs lie this much, it's obvious what their real intentions are. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Feel free to share your opinion on the entire ordeal, or if you want to talk about it anymore, you know, feel free to do it in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about it. I'll just leave you guys with a Metacritic score for the game because it is pretty laughable, and yes, I do realise I said bullshit about 500 times this video before anyone says. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.